Okay, that's it for the intro. If you're very first time, we're here in a long series, part 8 on integration, relationship integration. It'll make sense as we get into it, but I am Michael T. Smith. This is the Church of, and here is your message for the week of November 3rd. We're talking about the intersection of priority and integration in relationships, the priority access, how much the weight of people is felt in our lives. This exists in a hierarchy. Some people are low on the drop everything scale. Some people are very high on the drop everything scale. That, of course, on the other axis is the integration axis. How tightly woven is each individual, each person, in both the functional, right? Functional and the ideological. Logical, I guess. Ideological. What is it? IDO? EO. Logical. I want to spell idea. Logical. On the functional and ideological integration. And we can have people who we vibe with really well, who we just, we click, we see the world the same. When we're working an event or working in a department or handling something, we just click the same. Who are they? Well, they're just a person on my job. Or who are they? They're a person in the neighborhood. Or who are they? They're a client that I work with that we just vibe. Or they're a friend that I have on Facebook, or I'm part of a Facebook group. And do you really know them? Well, I don't really know them, but just the things that they speak of, I see the world the same way. But our relationship richness and thriving, right, comes from as the priority and the integration rise. And some of us have maybe one or two relationships, maybe a handful of relationships that are high in priority, high in integration. Others of us have it kind of dealt piecemeal out, and we've been talking about how to work through that. So the enemy of this now becomes the disharmonies in our relationships, that we can have high priority relationships that have functional or ideological disharmonies. And those disharmonies, if not addressed, can lead to disruption. Those disruptions in the harmony, the functional and ideological harmony, can lead to breaches. Those breaches now threaten, looming now, the possibility of deterioration, that the closeness that we feel, the threads start to get pulled a little bit, and of course that deterioration threatens dissolution, which, when it's a high priority relationship, is a painful process. There are simply some relationships. We accept that some people walk in and out of our lives. They're here one season, they're gone the next. And sometimes we know why, and it was a change in season, a change in time, a change in place, a change in objective. Other times we're not really sure what happened. It's just a mystery of how the ebb and flow, right? The tides of life. But in high priority relationships, when dissolution is threatened, when deterioration is felt, when disruption has been brought on by, when breaches have been brought on by disruption, have been brought on by disharmony, there's an urgency of, okay, how do I repair this? And last week we said, well, the best way to deal with it is to deal with it directly. That you collaborate with your relationship mirror. Hopefully they place the same priority, that their skill set matches your skill set, that their will set matches your will set, and together we can hash this out and kind of sew it all up again, sew it all up again, the threads, put it all back together again, and that's a blessing in life. But there are other times, realistically, where our relationship mirror does not possess a corresponding skill set, does not possess a corresponding will set, does not possess a corresponding urgency, a perspective on what's gone down, and we're not able to maintain the integration at the level that we like, or we're not able to restore, or we're not able to enlarge. We want to go higher up the integration ladder. We want to move higher up here. But our relationship mirror is just not willing to do that. They don't share that same priority. So now we're going to hopefully conclude this teaching couplet, the part 7 and part 8, maybe a part 8b. We'll see. What happens? Here's the question today. What happens when the integration or the reintegration is slow going? What happens when the reintegration or the integration is not happening at all? I've got a high priority relationship, and I'm sensing a deterioration, or I'm fearing or feeling the possibility of dissolution. I can sense that there's a breach. I can sense that there's a disruption. I am the disharmonies are pressing, and I'm trying to make an effort, or maybe the other party is trying to make an effort. Maybe we sense them making an effort, and we're not responding for whatever reason, or maybe we're making an effort and they're not responding for whatever reason. What happens in that situation? And so now we get into this idea. Here we go. Try to capture it in your notes. We begin with the recognition that sometimes the circumstances and the strains of life are simply not conducive to digging deep. Right? They're not conducive to digging down and doing the heavy work. Sometimes there's so much going on, either a ton of small things going on, or just a few big things, or maybe even one really big thing going on, that this season, this circumstance, the strains of my present life, our present life, are not conducive to digging deep. What I mean digging deep, we talked about it last week, that when we want to put relationships back together, when we want to take them higher, our part, the human part, is the talking, right? The sharing, the talk and re-talk, the hear and rehear, the speak and re-speak, the state and restate. And really, I'm not so sure that talking in itself is what advances the relationship. I'm convinced that it is the shedding of light, and I have light capitalized there, the shedding of light that is really responsible for advancing us as individuals and those with whom we relate, the illumination. So part of the talking and hearing is really about positioning. It's about nudging. I think of Mikey, my son, is like a claw game whisperer. You have those games where you move the claw this way and you move it that way and you lower it down over the iPod and you bring it out. He and I have certainly wasted a lot of money and not had any W's on it, right? But he's also come out with like, where did you get this? I just do it. So he's got a skill. It's kind of like, being in baseball, right? If you're a batter and you get up and only 30% of the time do you do your job right, you get highly paid. So he, it's not like he's 100% of the time, but his batting average would get him paid in the claw league. I'm just saying that. Sometimes the talking, right, the stating and restating, the hearing and rehearing, the repeat it back to me. That all we're doing is nudging the claw, right? We're going this way. We're just trying to nudge because it's the illumination, right? It's the. I'll say it this way. You're familiar in the Christian scriptures where it talks about Jesus talked about whoever comes to me and hears my sayings and does them is like a person that built his house upon a rock, her house upon a rock. And it says, and they dig deep and built the house upon a rock. The talking and retalking and stating and retelling is working through the sand. Working through the sand until we put the shovel in one more time and we hit a place of illumination. We hit a place of revelation. We hit a place of clarity, and it's the clarity that brings the breakthrough. But many times, like digging on the sand, right? You dig sand out, but it falls back in, right? Think of digging in a sandcastle. You dig sand out, and the sides fall in. It's this constant thing. What are we trying to do? We're trying to get down to a place of tink. Where we hear that we put the shovel in one more time. I'm so tired. I got blisters. I got conversational blisters. I got conversational sore shoulders. I can't do this anymore. But the act of churning and churning and churning, the act of will, the act of love, the act of committing to show up, to go over it again, that's the act of digging deep. But sometimes the circumstances of life, please hear me, sometimes the strains of life, they're simply not conducive to get out there with the shovel, to do the deep work, to dig deep enough to do the work of the functional or ideological reconciliation or integration. So that is the circumstances and conditions. And sometimes when I say circumstances and conditions of life, I don't really mean external. Sometimes they're internal. Where we are in our relationship as mom and dad, as husband and wife, as parent and child, as sibling, as friend, sometimes the circumstances and situations that are impeding the deep work are not external. It's not what we got going on. It's what I got going on or what they got going on internally. The circumstances within and or without, right? The circumstances, you think, when considered objectively, they're just unfit for deep work. What he's going through, what she's going through, what we're going through. what's going on around us, what's going on within us is simply unfit for the work at hand. And of course, we realize now, I'm not suggesting that you have to wait for a perfect or an ideal time to have tough and taxing conversations, to do the churning work. There's no such thing as a perfect time. There's no such thing as an ideal time. And you can't say, well, things aren't right with me, or things aren't right with, there's not enough laundry, not enough steaks in the freezer. I'm tired. I've been dealing with things. I got health going on. I got this. And it is true that sometimes those things do impede the deep work. Just things are going on, and we just can't get to it now. But let's not deceive ourselves. Let's not talk falsely. Let's not deal falsely when it comes to the idea of there's never a perfect time for tough conversations. There's never a perfect time for taxing conversations. But certainly your life experience knows, there are certainly times that are less bad than others, right? Certain times are better or worse by degree. So is this the ideal, perfect time? No such thing. Is this the worst situation ever? Well, every time you think you're in the worst situation ever, just talk to someone else. You'll find out they're in a worser situation or ever, right? So there might not be perfect, there might not be the best, there might not be the worst, but there are better or less bad, right? Circumstances by degree. So my advice now, we're talking about in this intracted kind of lockdown, impacted thing where your mirror is not responding, or maybe you are the non-responding mirror. My advice is always read the room. Assess the landscape. We've got to do some work here. We've got to do some digging here. But sometimes one wants to dig and one doesn't. Sometimes there's so much going on in life. Sometimes there's an impediment within one or the other, or within both, in, on, and around, right? Read the room, assess the landscape, consider the season. Ask, is now the time? And sometimes you may find out, we talked about the deep work, right? Because there's an issue, right? There's a disruption. Or sometimes the deep itch, there's a longing to connect. Sometimes, not all the time, and don't make this your default time, sometimes life is just not, the season is just not. The circumstances are just not ripe for what's needed. And let me pause this, because it's come a couple times in my spirit, especially with children, right? Read the room with your children. This may not be the time to address the huffiness or the attitude or the behavior, or this may not be the time to harp on the grade or the lateness or the chores being done or whatever. And I hate the word chores, I don't want to get into that, but we don't really have chores in our house. We have community participation. Everybody's got stuff to do. We all live in this. There's a lot of us living here. We all live here, and there's a lot going on. It's a full-time work and production and school studio happening here with live animals involved in every act. I mean, it's a lot going on. But just may not be the time to walk by the trash cans and say, well, Jimmy's supposed to bring the trash cans up. Sometimes sometimes what's going on with Jimmy doesn't need the text. He doesn't need the thing, hey, you going to get the trash cans? Sometimes what you need to do, Bob, is just grab the trash cans and bring them up. Right? Children are people too. Sometimes, especially what's going on inside the parent, the raging storm, the fermentation that's going on and all the shifts inside, what's going on in the parent's world, all the grown-up problems, we tend to minimize whatever's going on inside Jimmy, whatever's going on inside Tanya, or whatever's going on inside there is tiny compared to what's going on, and I get to push, but first of all, it's not always tiny. In actuality, and it's not always tiny in relativity. Sometimes we need to read the room, assess the landscape, consider the season, ask, is now the time, even for our own children. Why? Because sometimes sometimes they, sometimes our relationship is in survival mode. Sometimes we are just doing what we can do to try to hit all the marks, and we're barely hitting all the marks, right? We've got our compulsories, we've got our skating thing, we've got to hit 2 of these, 3 of these, 1 of these, our gymnastics, we've got to hit 4 of these, and we've got to hit them, and sometimes we're barely getting our 8 compulsories done, and to come in and load a taxing, deep work, we've got a breach here that we need to address. Sometimes we're aware that there's a breach, and sometimes we know there's a need for the breach to be addressed, but the circumstance situations that look, I'm in survival mode here, or sometimes they're in survival mode, and you've got to step back and go, maybe this isn't the time, right? You know, granddad's going through chemo, but you want to talk about why grandma said your kids didn't look cute at Easter. This may not be the time. Ragamuffin grandchildren, might not be the time to deal with that. You know, or why you didn't, you know, why you were put in charge of catering at the bridal shower and you didn't ask to be in charge of catering, and you know how expensive that. This might not be the time. Read the room, assess the landscape, consider the season. Well, I haven't said anything all year, and we're all finally together at Thanksgiving, but what you don't realize is that if people are in survival mode, when they all get together for Thanksgiving, they're hoping that little thing is going to be a respite from all the craziness going on around them. The kids are hoping for a respite. Everybody's hoping for a respite. The in-laws are hoping for. Everybody's hoping for a respite, and we say, well, I've been saving all the deep work for this weekend, and everybody else has been just barely holding on to get to that Thanksgiving weekend to have a breather. You got to read the room, because sometimes the deep itch that we have and our inability to process maturely that deep itch, that deep thing that we have, sometimes our inability to do that, our inability to assess, our inability to accept that sometimes life circumstances aren't there, that's a sign of selfishness and undevelopment on our part. I had a car a long time ago. It was a fancy car, and it said like it was built for the Alps, I guess, or whatever. And it says, "Look, we've built this car that if everything shuts down on it and all the cylinders shut down on it, we've built it with a thing where it'll keep like one cylinder going. You can do 5 miles an hour on 2 tires, and the lights will work. None of the other, don't ask for air or whatever, but the heat will work. So if you're stuck in the mountains and you're trying to get out of it, and the thing was called Run Safe Mode." Run safe mode, and the car has entered run safe mode, which means it's going to hop along. It's not going to leave you stranded. It's not going to be a luxury ride, and sometimes we as people, we enter into run safe mode, right? We're on, but not all cylinders. We're here, but we're here. If you look closely, you can see the tracks of my tears, right? I'm here, and I'm putting on the Santa suit, and I'm hosting the thing, but it's a real thin veneer here beneath this and just falling over in the ambrosia, right? Gobble, gobble. There's stuff happening, right? And sometimes the circumstances, situations, and the seasons are not there. And the itch that needs scratching might have to wait. Sometimes our obsessive compulsive need to have the itch scratch, or our partner's inability to understand the deep need that we have. Sometimes the compulsion we have, I need this scratched, I need this scratched, I need this addressed, I need this addressed. Sometimes the inability they have to even understand that there is a need that really needs to be scratched, Sometimes we scratch like Kenobi, we're scratching so hard, we're hurting ourselves. Sometimes that corresponding, I need it scratched so bad, and they don't see that it's scratched so bad, is really an indication of an individual deep work that is yet to take place. And we're showing up for work to be done. We're showing up for an itch to be scratched. We're showing up for a response because we're in a place, but sometimes the other individual is not in that place, that there's deep work that has to occur apart from us. Yeah, but I'm in relationship with them. But that's what we're talking about, right? What are we talking about? We're talking about... We're not talking about, low-level things down here. We're talking about people that are high on our priority list and with whom our functionality and thriving depends. So it's not like, well, you know what? They don't care about me. I don't care about them. That's low priority. That's for relationships down here. right? That's for integration down here. But when you have people that you are tied to in this three-legged race of life, and you need something from in this three-legged race of life, I pray, I wish, I declare, man, lucky you, blessed you, how rich are you if the person you're in a three-legged race with has the same urgency, the same skill, the same compassion, the same priority, the same dedication to deal with all issues at the same time you do. But in reality, sometimes you're running a three-legged race with somebody whose ankle is hurting, and the other person's got an ankle too hard to deal with, and the other person's got a headache too hard to deal with, and those internal things. By the way, you're being chased by mountain lions, so this might not be the way to talk about that you never compliment my cooking. I mean, that's the thing, the circumstance, situations without and within. You understand? Forgive me for cursing. We must give room for this this missing each other, right? Good people that you care about, that if the relationship dissolved, right? If it deteriorates to the point the breach gets so bad that it's materially different, that our lives would feel that there would be a visceral notice of the lessening, the coldness in the relationship. And it's a huge priority for us. So we just can't walk away. It's not a coworker, well, I was on that job, or I was at that school, and I'm at a different school, or, they were my bestie when I worked at Hooters, but now that I'm over here at Twin Peaks, they're just not my friends anymore. I have no idea where that reference popped. I was trying to think of a restaurant that's really funny. So how do we do it? We give room for this missing each other, right? The strangers in the night, through compartmentalization. And what is that? It's a negotiated truth. Here we go. Get ready to take some notes. Compartmentalization, a negotiated truce that I say, I've got an itch that needs to be scratched, you're the designated scratcher. Or you got an itch that needs to be scratched, and I'm the designated scratcher. Because the scratch is directly related to me. Or maybe, like we said last week, the scratch is related to something else, but it's our disharmony over what's going on to this other situation. So we need compartmentalization. And in compartmentalization, we're talking about this top level, it's a negotiated truce. And the truce includes two things. It includes catch this in your notes. As a matter of fact, Olivia, you can copy this line in there if you would. A negotiated truth that includes one, or Buzz, an expressed acknowledgement of the disharmony. When we say we're going to compartmentalize, we're in run safe mode, we're functioning in life, we got a lot of things. We got us, we got kids, we got a business, we got a ministry, we got a department, we got a family, children, grandchildren, we got a lot depending on us. We're hobbled in this area, right? We're in misery. But the circumstance, the situation, landscape, right? We're reading it. It's not conducive to doing the deep work. So we're going to kind of seal off this area. And we're going to seal it off, and we're going to make a truce to say, this is here, but for the sake of getting out of the snowstorm, we're going to just not table it, but we're going to cordon this off. We're going to block this off. But we do it with, first, an expressed acknowledgement of the disharmony. You can't just say, well, I'm going to compartmentalize this and move it off move it to the back burner. You can't do that without expressing an express acknowledgement. You've verbalized the acknowledgement that there's disharmony here, that there's disruption here in your notes, that there's a breach here. Not that there's necessarily agreement on the cause or the depth of a breach, but there's a sincere recognition by both parties that the integration is strained. This is so huge. So I want to move to compartmentalization. Pastor Mike, I'm in a situation with my dad. I'm in a situation with my mom. I'm in a situation with my brother. I'm in a situation with my cousin. I'm in a situation with a coworker. I'm in a situation with my best friend, my best girlfriend, and she's having a wedding, and something she said to me, and I can't believe she's doing this, and okay, fine. But maybe the wedding, right, isn't the time to hash it out. Maybe it's just time to pay for the extra thing and to feel the little slight and to feel a little pain. And why is the person that wasn't even nice to her moved up as the maid of honor and you're back? There may be a time, but the wedding may not be the time. So maybe, hopefully, if you don't have a mirror in a relationship that can pause to do the deep work, or if you're not in a circumstance, internally or externally, they or them, to pause to do the deep work, maybe you have a relationship person with whom you can agree to compromise. Come to negotiated truth, and it starts with this. Listen, Kelly, I know there's a problem. I understand you're upset, and I have my reasons for this, but I know we can't talk about it now. But you got to know that I see this. I got to know that when I didn't show up for this, it hurt you. Or you got to know that I know. What is it? An expressed acknowledgement. I am aware that this disharmony, this disruption, this breach is here. I too am feeling the strain of deterioration. I am aware and fearful of the dissolution of our relationship. So I am taking a proactive step to say, look, this is a problem that it's either not the time in life, or I'm not at the place, or you're not at the place, or maybe there's some skills, or maybe there's light I need, or you need, or we need, but we don't have it now. But I don't want the whole ship to go down, so let's compartmentalize this. But that compartmentalization starts with the acknowledgement. I know the effects of the affair are still lingering. I know the falling off the wagon of my addiction is still lingering. But every time we try to get to it, it's either not the right time or not the right place, or I'm not in a good place or you're not in a bad place, but I know that it's out there. Or I know the words that were said, or I know that the thing went on, or I know there's a deep hurt and that you feel I abandoned you when you had to. I understand that's out there. And in a perfect world, I'm here ready, sitting, locked in, let's deal with it, or you're there. But sometimes either what's in me or what's in you is just not there. And you can say, fine, I don't want the relationship anymore. Then I'm out of it. And there may come a time for that. But there may also come a time when there's just too much riding and there's too much good to lose at all. Can we carve a place in this house? Can we compartmentalize this topic, this situation, this circumstance in this season? Can we do that? And if the answer is yes, we can do that, the negotiated truth starts with, but I acknowledge that there's an issue. Not that, I'm not saying you're right on it. I'm not even making the claim that I'm right on it, because I got a lot of feelings on what you're saying, and I don't know if I agree with it, and I'm sure you got feelings, but I am acknowledging I sense the strain of the integration. 2. Second thing needed for the truth is an assurance and affirmation. Catch this in your notes, Olivia, be so kind. An assurance and affirmation of the enduring usness of the relationship. I'm going to say, bro, look, I got to say, when I broke up with my girl and you were DMing her the next day, that kind of really hurt. Like, really hurt. Like, that's roguish. That's like, that really hurt me. And I understand you have your perspective on it. And I understand you weren't trying, we can't get into that now, but you got to know that this is an issue, but that I still value you as my friend. I want to assure and affirm the usness, the enduring usness of this relationship, which is what? That this thing is not so strong that it can destroy what we have. This is a verbalized commitment, to our ongoing presence in each other's life, our ongoing priority, that look, we're going through this situation, but you're my husband. You're my son. You're my daughter. You're my mother-in-law. You're my daughter-in-law, right? Listen, this has happened, and I disagree with what happened, and I think the discipline of the kids was inappropriate, and I know it's not my place to comment on it, but you have to know that I think that, your husband was too hard on the kids, and, honey, I just don't think that. Well, Mom, it's a problem for me because even if I agree with you, then I'm in divisiveness against Bill. Look, I understand the circumstance isn't right to do the deep work, but sweetheart, you have to know you're my daughter, and I'm your mom. And we are bigger than this. So I will agree for a negotiated truce as long as we can mutually acknowledge there's a thing here that at some point might need to be addressed, but we can't right now. We're not going to let it sink the whole ship, but that's only part A. Part B is that this relationship, right? That I am committed to the ongoing presence in each other's life. I am committed to the ongoing priority that you mean more to me than you will ever know, and I am committed to preserving the preciousness of what we have, because this little thing has crept up, or this big thing has crept up, but yet it's not large enough to tip the preciousness of what you and I have together. I hope you're hearing me today. So what might this look like practically? I just had a freak out moment. I looked at the clock. It said 11:01 and 25 seconds. I thought it said 11:25. I was like, oh, that's bad. I'm not going to be too long today. There's going to be a part A, B. This is part 8. Part 8B will come. But just stay in here with me a little bit. What might this look like practically? And this is what we're going to end on today. I'm going to give you 3 or 4 things of what this might look like practically. And what I'm talking about is for every relationship. But the things that I'm going to be dealing with, for those of you who say, my problem is with a marriage or a romantic partner, then the list that we're going to deal with practically today is especially useful for that. It can go everything. I'm going to be instructing in this final part of this final part here, in terms or ideas that are grounded mostly in the traditional context of marriage. And listen, I'm talking marriage, but there are other romantic couplets and thruplets and forms of romantic relationship, and I acknowledge that. I'm talking about that tried and true institution for individual and the thriving of offspring, and marriage is by no means unfraught, or if you will, it's by no means faultless. I'm just saying over millennia, right? Over thousands and thousands of years, it's been proven to be at least among the least bad options. Not faultless, not unfraught, not without its own complications, but that's what I'm talking about. But what follows, the instruction, I'm going to give you this 1, 2, 3, 4, it's useful to all kinds of relationship, parent, child, in-laws, co-workers, whatever. So don't just hear it in the context of marriage and say, well, that doesn't apply to me. Hear it and say, okay, what does this compartmentalization look like practically and for marriage in general? And also, and we're not going to, obviously, because of, I don't know who's listening, we're not going to get in this too detailed, too deeply, but it certainly applies to a married sex life as well as just marriage in general. So here we go. Now, the goal of marriage, right, the goal of the whole of marriage is integration. Marriage is an indication of priority. It should be an indication of relational priority. That's when you say, we got married. but we got married is a date on a picture frame, right, or on an invitation. But getting married is the act of integration. And this integration is partial, it's never entire, but it's also, in theory, increasing. But where the integration, and now we're talking marriage, but, listen, I wouldn't necessarily say the relationship goal between you and your in-laws is integration, but there are going to be increasing levels of integration. Children come along, life seasons come along, people pass, there's a lot of complex life is long, right? There's a lot of seasons that come along that you kind of heard about, but once you're in there, right? Everybody's got a plan until they get, a bad diagnosis, right? But sometimes the integration in marriage, where that aim, either in the short term and long term, becomes impractical, or I like this word, impacted. And I want you to think of impacted in the worst colonic way you can think of. Things are just stuck. Sometimes, as we work with that relationship matter, in the short term and long term, things get stuck, and we employ compartmentalization on occasion, like every now and then. Sometimes we employ it by sector. Okay, all of the 22 touch points of our marriage we're actually doing pretty good on. There are these two sectors we're applying this compartmentalization, or sometimes by season. Our whole 24 touch points in marriage are doing really well, but in this season, we're feeling some strain. So either by occasion, every now and then we just get to a place where we're going to table this, or by sector, we do okay, but in finances, we kind of have to negotiate some truce here because it always derails very happy times, or the marriage bed or whatever. Or sometimes by season, we typically do very well, but man, we are in a place, people always say, well, young people say, I'm getting married and I know we're going to have rough days. Listen, you're going to have rough decades, right? Rough decades, what is that? I'm not talking about totality, but I'm saying that you can have a decade where 22 points are going great. 23.23 is pretty good. And 0.24, don't even bring it up. Don't even talk about it. We've had 4 presidential elections, and we're still stuck right there. Somebody say, is that really possible? Yeah, because of compartmentalization. What? We're thriving for ourselves and for a lot of other people that depend on us. And because of that, we have a section, either a sector or an occasion or a season in which, And this again, in-laws, and this again, and sometimes what's interesting is compartmentalization takes place when it's convenient. Like what? We're going to establish a little healthy distance. We're going to affirm the preciousness and priority, but we do have this unresolved issue. But when something major comes along, you even table the compartmentalization. Why? Well, when the diagnosis came, or when the tragedy hit, or when the whatever, you got to put all that other stuff aside. Why? Because the priority is still here, and I'm even willing to table the integration impediments to demonstrate that my God above all that, you're my mother-in-law, you're my father-in-law, you're my brother, you're my son. So you understand that type of a thing. All right. So let's begin with this 4 questions. I guess we'll end with these 4 questions. What does each individual need? Right? We're talking marriage, but it could be in-law to in-law, sibling to sibling, friend to friend. What does each individual need, want, and envision? How do I deal with compartmentalization? What is it that you need? What is it that you need from me? What is it you need from this relationship? What is it you want here? What are you wanting here? What is your ask? What do you envision? How do you see this in your brain? It's a huge question. Answering that question is exhaustive, right? It's ongoing. It's an exhaustive, ongoing conversation. What do you need? What do you want? What do you envision? And again, this is in mother and daughter. I mean, my mom, my mom was just one of a kind, but she would say things like, well, Mike, when it comes to Connie, she is not at all the daughter-in-law that I wanted. I would say, okay, I'm sure you mean that in the best way. She said, no. She said, I always had in my envision a girlfriend that we were going to shop together, and we were going to cook together, and we were going to go get jewelry together, and we were going to go just have lunch together. And she said, I got none of that with Connie. She said, we're not that kind of friend. She said, but what I would want for my son, what I would want for my grandchildren, there's no better person in the world that I could have chosen for my son and for my grandchildren. And so sometimes you envision in a relationship, oh man, we're sisters. We're supposed to be besties. We're supposed to be this. And the other person may be like, that's not what I see in sisterdom. Well, I always wanted to be one of those sisters that their sister was their best friend, and that's not what we are. So what does each party need? What does each party want? What does each party envision? And this is an exhaustive, ongoing conversation, and it should be had early, it should be had often, and it should be had throughout. And sometimes you have to strategically plan times in high-priority relationships. What do you need from me as a son? What do you need from me as a father? My son's a senior in high school, and he's finishing up his grades. He's working on his 4.0 for the whole thing. He's got scholarships. He's got this. I mean, this dude is in the home stretch, and now we're at the season. Okay, what do you need from us? How can we support where you are? The last thing I want is my daughter saying, man, they really weren't around for me. They really, man, I got this. We're here. Do we need to play man-to-man defense? We need to play zone? Do we need to fall back? What do you need? And these are conversations that we have. Okay, this and that. There's a triangle. Here's this. Are you getting this? Are you getting this? What about this? But they're very much adulting conversations because as he rises, right, to, 15, 16, 17, 18, as Olivia rises, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, Connie and I we're still parents. They still want us as parents. They still need us as parents. They still need that hug. They still need that place to go. They still need a sense of home. But at the same time, we want to make sure we're getting support. So what do you need? What do you want? What do you envision? Do we need to set aside times? Let's get through this first semester. Sit down. Let's regroup. Let's look at your classes. Scheduled intentionally by design. The first question, what does each individual, each party need, want, envision? Second question, what is impeding the fulfillment of these needs, wants, and visions, right? What practically is, well, listen, I know you want us to go fishing every day, but Ted, I work 3 jobs. You get 5 white balls and a red ball, and we'll go fishing all day long. Practically, what is standing in the way of what each party needs, wants, and envisions? Or, here's a big one, what philosophically? So question 2, what practically or what philosophically is impeding the fulfillment? This is what I want. I want this type of sex life. I want this type of relationship. I want this type of father-son relationship. I want to go here, and I want to be, Timmy's dad is his coach, and Timmy's dad is his best friend, and Timmy's dad is the scoutmaster, and Timmy's dad is this, and Timmy's dad does not work 4 jobs. Timmy's dad does not have this disease or whatever that is. I don't know, but what practically or what philosophically? That's not who I am. That's not how I see it. That's not me. You want me to be something that I'm not. What practically or philosophically is impeding the fulfillment of each party's needs, want, and desire? Here's a question. Why do they desire what they desire? Still in number 2. Why do they want what they want? A key question, maybe not the morality, but this is a big question here, is does what they want confer or preserve dignity? Sometimes when you say confer, preserve dignity, does this conversation of dignity, is this even something that someone should want, right? That's the real question. What do they want? And out of that, what philosophically or practically is impeding the fulfillment of that want? It comes down to why they want it, and is it something they should want, right? This may highlight an ideological divide. So now we get into this weird meta compounded non-integration, which is, I feel like we're not integrated on this, and now we get into, we don't even see eye to eye on that this should be something we should be integrated on. So now you're not an integration about not being an integration. I mean, it gets deep, but this is what it means to relate as humans, right? Or you just sit there empty, right, with somebody close at hand that could scratch you, but they don't see that they think your need for a scratch there is totally ridiculous. So what practically or philosophically is standing in the way? I hope you're getting something out of this. I can't even see your comments, but in the old church they say, I'm preaching better than you're amening. I would say, I'm preaching better than you're emojiing. I don't even know what that means. I can't see your comments or your emojis. It doesn't matter. 3, 1, what do you want? 2, what's standing in the way? 3, what would it take for the parties to integrate their needs, wants, and visions? What would it take for the parties to integrate their needs, wants, and visions? What would it take? And when I say that, sometimes it takes an action. Okay, if you want to spend more time recreationally, then I'm going to have to learn about football. That's an action. Sometimes it's an accommodation. Well, you want more time, or you want meals at home, or you want this. I'm gonna have. It's not. Sometimes it takes an action. Sometimes it takes an accommodation. All right, how can I make room for this thing that you want? And again, this is in all relationships. It's friendship or whatever. You got a friendship that really want to go to trivia, but you're an introvert. You don't like being around people, and you don't like when people are drinking. You don't like this. Okay, what type of accommodation do I have to make here? Or in the marriage bed, okay, what type of action would it take to bring this thing to where you envision it? Or what type of accommodation? Okay, that's really not me, but how do we accommodate that type of thing? And again, maybe we need to do a romantic partner marriage dating thing kind of on its own. If full integration is not presently possible on this matter, still under number 3, then what might a compartmental approach look like? Okay, I can't give you all of this, but we can certainly carve out a compartmentalized place where you might be able to thrive in that. Like, I want to go hiking. Well, I don't want to be outdoors. I hate the bugs. I hate the smell. Like, I hate this. I hate that. But I want to do that. I want to see the trail. I want to do this. Okay, what type of compartmentalized agreement might we be able to come up with? What action? What accommodation is needed? 4, final thing. What is the negotiated alternative? This is a big one. Between neither of us getting what we want. Or what I should say it this way. What is the negotiated alternative to neither of us getting what we want? Well, I just feel like we should hang out sometimes and get pedicures. Oh my gosh, I want to do that with you, but mom or mother-in-law or whatever, we go out and get pedicures, and all you do is gossip about everybody there. All you do is talk politics, or all you do is criticize, or all you do is use it to seed bad information in the family to me so that I can be on your side. I don't want to do that, right? So is there a middle ground between neither of us getting what we want, and is there an alternative? She gets everything she wants, and I hate it. Well, that's not the best idea. She gets nothing that she wants, and I love it. Well, that's not the best idea. Is there a middle ground between the all or the nothing? What I mean by middle ground, is there a possibility in this conversation that could make both parties happier, right? Make both parties happier where neither feels like they have to give entirely, or give up entirely on this area of need, want, and vision. What is that middle ground? You know, I find a lot this in my counseling. My son wants to live at home. My daughter wants to move out. My mom doesn't want me there. My dad thinks I should be doing this. My husband thinks this. My wife thinks this. And I just think this. And I always say, okay, well, I hear you. And I'm just not going to do that. Or she's not going to do that. Or we're not going to do that. And I just can't do that. And he wants me. Okay, I get. So if I hear you correctly, option A is they get what they want and you are pained and bitter by it, or option B, you get what you want and they are pained and bitter by it. The point of compartmentalization, what we've been working on all these 8 weeks is there something in the middle that can bring dignity, that can bring happiness, that can move each other closer to fulfillment? And a lot of times it's like, no, it's my way or the highway. And that's not how to preserve a long-term, high-priority relationship. Well, you know, Pastor, I was really hoping you were going to come conclude this thing, and this is not the conclusion. I don't want to start the final thought because the clincher on this is everything, what I'm trying to get to. So you just have to put a pin in it. But I really thought you were going to get a thing, give me 3 tips to get what I want. That's not how life works. Sometimes what you're doing is trying to preserve the largest proportion of ideological, functional priority, thriving, and happiness. And the rest is a compromise. But I don't think the compromise should be an entire giving or an entire giving up. I think there's place in the middle, and it's that place in the middle that we want to talk about next week. I owe it to you, not to rush through it. I owe it to you, so we'll stop right there. I know you got something today. If you just sit with it for a minute, I know you got something today. As always, thank you so much for your support. It's a simple question. You watch every week. You come to service every week. Sometimes you come live. Sometimes you watch it Sunday night. Sometimes you listen to it throughout the week 2 and 3 times. It's a question you have to ask. I would imagine that if you're coming every week or you're listening every week or once every 2 weeks or rewatching it 2 or 3 times, I would imagine the question is already answered. Am I getting anything out of this? Am I getting value? And the answer is probably, if you're listening every week or every other week, the answer is, yeah, I'm getting value. So that now brings another question. Am I communicating that value to the people who are bringing me this value? And that is your support for us, and it means more than I know. Thank you for that, because, Connie and I, as a matter of fact, after every week, we're going to end here in a minute, I got my whole family over here to my left, your right, and we sit at the table and we talk about, wow, and I got that, and this really helped. So we know we're getting value. And so I just choose to believe that you're getting value in it. And it means a lot. So that's that. But really, that doesn't make us a church, right? You coming to get information that changes your life and enriches your life, and saying, hey, I really appreciate it. That just makes us a podcast, right? That just makes us a YouTube streamer, right? Cup of coffee or a Patreon. But that's not what makes us a church. What makes us a church is that we've decided to replace all the energy of weaponized conditional religion. We got to do this, and God's going to get us, and if we're not on the right side, and decided to go out and it lived like the actual embodiment of Christ, not in the weaponized false religion built around the person of Christ, but in the essence of what Christ was bringing that became a threat to the religious and political structures. And it's not this nationalism garbage that's going on now, I can assure you. In Christ's name, or whatever that is, it's out there embodying the not yet world in the right now world on the micro and macro level. And that's what makes us a church. And so thank God you're getting something out of this each week. Thank God you're finding value and communicating value to Connie and I for the value you're getting. It's awesome. But it's not a complete circle unless you say, the reason I'm not in the traditional church, the reason I no longer subscribe to get on our team or you're God's enemy, the reason I no longer believe that garbage is not that I've given up religion, but I've replaced religion to true religion, which is my existence in life, is to go out and embody love and to be part of that not yet and the right now. And complete that circle every single day of my life. My family, right? all of us, we endeavor to complete that circle, because that's what true religion is. The other stuff is not at all. Amen. Peace, health, protection, preservation, light, abundance, aboveness, prosperity, favor, and Zoe on you and yours. Lord, we pray for our nation. We pray for the nations of the world. The not yet world come, right? Your will be done, the not yet world, in the right now world. That is our faith contention. That the extreme non-suffering, non-injustice, non-ism, non-schism, non-violence of the not yet world would break forth in the right now world. That we would be agents of that not yet world in the right now world. And Lord, that is where we center our faith. We do that today. We do that on Tuesday. We do it on Friday. Because we are in enduring things, eternal things. And that is our faith. In Jesus' name, amen. Make it a great week. You are loved. And we'll see you right here. Oh, don't miss the conclusion of this. It's the bestest of the best. It's the juiciest part. I love you so much. I got to stop talking. Make it great. My whole family loves you. Bye.